Good evening, Hampton Roads, and welcome to another edition of Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm your host, certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, coming to you live like I do every second and fourth Tuesday of the month to dialogue with you, take your calls if you have a question or comment relating to your own personal financial situation or anything I'm talking about here tonight. Jump on the phone lines. Give me a call, 627-7979. All we need is your first name, city you're calling from, and no matter what I'm talking about, if it's important to you, then it's important to me. We'll get you right on air. 627-7979. Wealthway Financial Advisors is the proud sponsor of Dollars and Common Sense. We are an independent registered investment advisor, which means we're legally held to a fiduciary standard to put our clients' interest ahead of our own in any business dealing or recommendation that we make. And that's the way it should be when you work with a financial advisor. As the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. So by design, we can't work with everyone. We work with a relatively small group of high net worth individuals, but that's one of the reasons we feel so strongly about coming here every second and fourth Tuesday at 6 p.m. And that's to reach out and help as many people in the Hampton Roads listening area that we can achieve your measure of financial success. Because it is a core belief at Wealthway Advisors that the overwhelming majority of people in this country have the opportunity for financial security if they choose it. But it is a choice because it takes some time, it takes some effort, and it takes some knowledge. We are here to help. You got to take that first step, though. Pick up the phone, give me a call, 627-7979. Whether you want to talk about anything having to do with the investment markets, the economy, insurance products like life insurance, health insurance, property casualty, taxes, tax planning, tax reduction strategies, retirement planning, retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, IRAs, Roth IRAs, mortgage options, Social Security claiming strategies, or estate planning, wills and trusts. All that and more falls under the umbrella of personal finance. We are here to discuss tonight. 627-7979. All right, well, tonight's going to be the second part of a two-part sort of series. Last show, I spoke about the corrosive effects of the cost of lifestyle inflation, and I posited that about 80% of the U.S. population, I believe, has the opportunity for financial security. So 80% of the population can become financially secure at some stage of their lifetime if they put the work in. But I also believe that only about 20% of the population actually ever really gets there, ever actually realizes that financial security. And a big part of that last show was talking about why that is the case when so many could have financial security, but relatively few actually achieve it. And a big part of that is lifestyle creep. In a shorthand, that's the more you make, the more you spend, and usually by a multiple, right? Make another dollar, spend another two. And so you never really gain financial traction and you don't build wealth over your lifetime. And so that's a major reason why most people who have the opportunity, they have the fundamentals. Look, if you have a job, you have income, you have the opportunity to be financially stable and secure, and maybe even financially independent one day, which means you don't have to depend on anyone else to maintain your lifestyle. You depend on yourself based on your savings, your investing, and other income sources that you develop on your own besides your employer. So when so many people have the opportunity, but so few actually achieve it, that's where the lifestyle creep is probably one of the biggest offenders from preventing people from doing that. It's not that they don't make enough money, it's that they don't harness that money and channel it into the right resources, and mainly because of behaviors. In the United States, consumerism is king. And there's always somebody looking to sell you a nicer car, a bigger house, nicer clothes, that type of thing. And so the temptation is there, and it's hard to really get that traction. So that was last show. Now, this show, I want to talk about something that is the opposite side of that coin, and that is financial freedom and guilt-free spending. So this is like using your money to create experiences and joy, but without jeopardizing your financial security. So we often think about money as something to save, invest, use to pay our bills, the mechanical aspects of it. But ultimately, once you get past the fundamentals, and they're important, and I don't want to dismiss that. Look, when you can't pay the rent or you can't make your car payment, nothing really else matters. You are putting all your time, attention, mental energy into getting those fundamentals paid for, making sure there's enough food in the fridge and your lights don't get turned off. I get that. We're not talking about that stage. And a lot of us started out around that stage. You get your first job out of college, you're making entry-level wages, you might have student loan debt from college, or you're starting in a low-end job that pays lower income. It's really hard to make ends meet when you're just starting out. But if you play your cards right, if you handle your money properly, then eventually you build a solid foundation. You build your emergency fund. You pay off all your bad debt. You keep that bad debt paid off, and you start to save money, invest money in your company retirement plan, and you start to grow that money over time to one day you reach the point where you no longer have to work for money. You might choose to continue to work because you enjoy your work. There's purpose. There's achievement that comes from work. Yeah, there's a lot of headaches too in a lot of occupations, but there's a lot of gratification that comes from doing good, honest work and helping other people. So if you reach for people who reach the point where they don't have to work for money to maintain the lifestyle that they currently have or lifestyle that they desire, then we open up opportunities to what are we going to use this money for? Because ultimately, money is really a tool that allows you to live the life you want. A tool to live the life you want. And you harness it properly. You channel it properly. So that means opening up the world to travel possibilities where you can go anywhere on the planet to visit and experience. Maybe pursue hobbies that have no economic gain whatsoever, but bring you all kinds of personal satisfaction. Learning new skills, having the time, the luxury of time to not have to be at an office at 8:30 in the morning and stay there until 5:30. The freedom and flexibility to learn new skills, take classes at community college, read books that you would have never had the time to invest in, or just enjoying other life adventures. That's the ultimate highest use purpose of money. So the key is to how do we get to this point is planning for these experiences intentionally. Okay, it doesn't happen by accident. It's not a mistake. People don't fall into it. Yes, somebody hits the lottery somewhere, but it's not going to be you. Okay, you, like most of us, have to work to get to this point. But once we do, we have the intense personal pride and gratification that comes from good, honest, hard work and being financially responsible, and then having the opportunity to use our financial resources to live our life intentionally and on purpose, without sacrificing long-term financial goals or short-term pleasure. So let's take a look at why people often overspend or underplan when it comes to some of the most common expenses, travels, and hobbies. A little bit of a look back on the last show to set the stage for how we can prepare going forward to get to this place of financial freedom and financial security. We're going to do that, though, right after the break. 627-7979. If you have a question or comment relating to your own personal financial situation, or you want to jump in on the conversation, 627-7979. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Financial advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, the president at Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. For more information about us, you can look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. All right, tonight we're talking about financial freedom and guilt-free spending. How good is that? You know, in our practice, when we take on a new client, I usually say we hope that you remain a client for life. There's nothing contractually keeping anyone in our keeping anyone as a client for any length of time, but we hope we do enough good work over time that people will remain with us throughout their lifetime. And so we have clients who have been with us 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years plus. They have been clients of Wealthway Financial Advisors, or my predecessor, who some still probably remember, Bunting Capital Management and Dan Bunting. But we have clients for a really long time, and that's when we are able to do our best, most impactful, most valuable work is over an extended period of time. Because that's how, through the planning process, where we can add value that can add tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, literally sometimes millions of dollars of additional net worth over a client's lifetime based on our strategies, techniques, and recommendations that we make for our clients. And so oftentimes we get our clients to the point where they are financially independent. They do not have to work for financial reasons. And then our job switches to try to get them to spend this money that they have worked so hard to accumulate. And that's a really hard switch for a lot of people to flip. People who have been financially responsible, dedicated, they follow our advice. They're really good about saving and accumulating, and they get a thrill out of that, and they love to see their net worth grow, and they get more excitement out of that than they do, buying a fancy new car or something like that. They love the intangibles of wealth instead of the trappings of wealth. But the whole reason we do this, primarily for most people, is to get them to the point where they can now enjoy the wealth that they have accumulated guilt-free. Because one thing we have not figured out how to do is how to transition that wealth to the other side. Whatever afterlife there may be for us, we don't know how to transfer the money there. So you should enjoy it throughout your lifetime once you get to a place of financial security. And that's what we're talking about here tonight. So one of the things that holds people back from doing that are people who overspend or underplan. And what do I mean by that? Overspend. So impulse spending is a big detractor from wealth generation. So booking last minute vacations, that's usually the most expensive time to get an airline flight. It's usually the most expensive when to get a hotel room. It's usually most expensive to get tickets to the show or the game. Not always, but generally speaking, last minute decisions like that cost more. And there's examples, some practical examples. We had a client once who he just was having a rough week. His job was not going well. He said, heck with it, I'm out of here. Took off for a long weekend and blew like $5,000 in Miami doing who knows what, but he spent a lot of money down in Miami at the last minute. And instead of that, feeling good and blowing off steam, no, he came back riddled with even more guilt than before he left. So impulse spending is usually expensive. Intentional, planned spending can be thrifty and economical. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But there's an opportunity cost to this extra money that you spend when you wait to the last minute to plan some of these indulgences. So when you overspend in one area, that means you reduce contributions to retirement or emergency funds. There's less money to save for your emergency fund. Once you build that up, then there's less money to put away in your company retirement fund or in a regular brokerage account or to a mutual fund company. There's just less money because you're spending it on doing something that has probably good potential mental health aspects, but that you're paying a lot more than you otherwise could because you just didn't plan for it properly. So here's another practical example. That extra $5,000 that the client blew down in Miami because he was having a rough week at work, if he took that $5,000, put in his company retirement plan, and averaged an 8% annual growth rate on that $5,000, well, in 15 years, he's got about $15,000, tripled it over that period of time. That's how you grow your wealth over time. But without having that money because it got spent recklessly, that just lowers your net worth overall. So last minute spending, last minute planning is usually expensive and detracts from the overall goal, something to watch out for. Now, a little bit more on the psychology of enjoyment of money and enjoyment of life. Two major studies, one out of Harvard, one out of Purdue, show that well-planned discretionary spending leads to higher sustained satisfaction than impulse splurges. So pretty much just what I was talking about in my specific example. People feel better. You actually feel better about yourself, about the indulgence you're about to partake in, and your overall life in general if you plan out your discretionary spending instead of doing it impulsively. Impulse spending is like a short-term high. It feels good in the moment. And then the next day, the hangover sets in, right? Then you realize they racked up the credit card bills, you overspent on the dinner, you paid too much for the bottle of wine, the hotel room was more lavish than you expected. It was fun, but oh boy, I'm going to pay for it now. Whereas well-planned discretionary spending leads to a sort of contentment. The joy of contentment. Contentment is not excitement. It's not like amusement park happiness and thrill seeking. It's that calm, peaceful, confident happiness. That's contentment. And that's what you get from well-planned discretionary spending. The anticipation of part of what causes that is the anticipation of planned experience often increases the happiness more than the unplanned purchases. Because why? We're thinking about that trip we're going to take to Africa. Okay? Well, that you got to do a lot of planning for that, or you got to engage travel agents. And so there's a lot of excitement built. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to stay? What type of safaris are we going to go in? What type of animals are we going to see? You're not even on the trip yet, but you're getting excited about it because of the anticipation. And so that helps almost extend the joy of the indulgence because you're thinking about it in advance and you're planning for it. All right, so how do we prioritize our spending on things that truly matter? We'll talk about that when we come back after the news. 627-7979. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, the president at Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. For more information about us, you can look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. Once there, you can request an information packet to find out what it's like to work with us, or sign up for a free quarterly newsletter at wealthwayadvisors.com. Just go to the Request a Consultation page, put your name and address in the dialog boxes there, select the appropriate drop-down menu, and we will get that information out to you later on this week. And that's all we will use your name and address for, is just to send you the information that you request. Or if you have some nuanced questions, want to speak to a live human being, give us a call at the office, 456-2200. Want to remind everybody, our next live show will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, November 11th. But if you can't catch us live every second and fourth Tuesday in a month at 6 p.m., get this show as a podcast. Search for Dollars and Common Sense wherever you get your podcasts. Download us, take us with you where you go, and listen at your convenience. And for those of you into social media, we have a presence on Facebook and LinkedIn. Search for Wealthway Financial Advisors, hit that like or follow button, and usually once every week or two, we put up an interesting and informative financial planning post. And I should mention at the beginning of the show, I referenced last show about the cost of lifestyle inflation and what holds a lot of people back from creating wealth. If you want to hear that show, you can, once again, get the podcast, Dollars and Common Sense, search for Dollars and Common Sense, or just go to our website, wealthwayadvisors.com. Click on Dollars and Common Sense, and we have our last 5 or 6 shows there. You can listen to the recording, or you can read the transcript. All right, tonight we are talking about financial freedom and guilt-free spending, the ideal place to be. Once you have built a solid financial foundation and you are financially secure, then enjoying your money to enhance your quality of life, the highest and best use of money for most people. So we're talking about how we prioritize our spending on the things that truly matter, okay? Our passions, the hobbies, the travel, the family, the friends, education. How do we organize things in such a way that we spend intentionally to get the highest gratification out of our money? So, well, first off, we want to align our spending with our values, right? Spend more on the things that are meaningful to you than on things that are secondary to you, right? And so sometimes that's obvious for some people, and they know specifically what they want and what is most important to them. But I'll tell you, for a lot of people, they don't necessarily know, or at least they don't have strong opinions about it until they give themselves the luxury of time to sit back and think about it. Because most of us hardworking Americans don't quite have that luxury. We know we got to show up for work. We know we got to get a paycheck. We know we got to pay the bills. We know we got to get the kids fed. We need to get them educated in some capacity. But what do we really want to do with our lives once all that is taken care of and we have the financial resources behind us? Well, start spending some time on what's really important to you. And for most people, it's, when you get right down to it, for most people, it's typically friends and family. It's our relationships that matter most to us. It's not a second vacation home, or I should say a second home as a vacation home. It's not lavish travel, although that's nice too. It's not luxury vehicles or fine clothes and fancy dinners. All that is nice too, and you should enjoy that. But really, when you come down to what's most meaningful, most people gravitate towards family and friends, their relationships. So here's an example of one of the things that we recommend to our clients. Spend more on a meaningful annual family trip than on a second luxury car. And what's a meaningful family trip? Well, take, assuming you're in your 60s or early 70s, so you have adult children in your 40s, and you probably have grandkids in your 20s, might even be a grandkid or two in there, right? Take that extended family with you on a cruise where you're all together, where you make shared memories, or rent a house down in Nashville in the mountains, and play games and have events and explore the area together as a family, or a house in the Outer Banks and at the beach, or wherever you want to go as a family, go as a group. You pay for it for your extended family. So all your adult children's, all the grandkids, expense paid trip. Grandma and grandpa got this, okay? Well, that could easily cost $25,000, $30,000 if you do it for a week, or maybe even two. So there's the experiences and the memories you make for your kids and your grandkids when you spend on something like that last not just your lifetime, it lasts for their lifetime as well. And they talk about those events, and they pass those events down to their kids. And so it forms a sort of legacy. Now that's intentional spending that adds to the quality of life. And then, so think about, top 3 experiences that would bring you the most joy. And you usually come to a conclusion that it's with somebody else, a spouse, a friend, your family. That's what typically brings people the most joy in some form or fashion. And then we all have to prioritize something. So usually you want to tier these ideas. Do have some tiered planning. Think of what are must-have experiences versus occasional indulgences. So in my example here, we can make the decision that the annual family vacation is a must-have, and everyone has to block off the 3rd week in July, say, for the family get-together, or the family trip. And that's going to happen. Grandma and grandpa have committed to that for the foreseeable future, and everyone can depend on that and having a great time. So that's maybe the non-negotiable. But then maybe that luxury vehicle that grandma and grandpa want, that takes a back seat. And maybe when good investment years, we have a little excess cash flow to spend and indulge, then that's a good use of it for the luxury vehicle. And so you can still have those things, but you just make them a little a secondary priority compared to the experiences with friends and family. And then how do you kind of help yourself stay on track for these things? Well, you can obviously, some people like to do this, bucket their savings. So you might have your travel bucket, your travel fund, your hobby fund. You might have your car fund, the wine fund, the cigar fund, whatever your indulgences are that you like. You can always bucket them into separate accounts and earmark that money for specific purposes. That works for some people. Other people find that overwhelming and a little bit too administratively infeasible. But you can also use nowadays with modern technology. There are plenty of budgeting apps that can help you segregate money from your budget or from your assets to earmark those for these special trips and allow you to keep discretionary spending visible. So it sort of gives you something it's always on your mind. You see those little categories. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, just the planning for the event builds an excitement and an anticipation that makes us happy, makes us feel good, gives us something to look forward to. And it really almost extends the joy that comes from that event because you're feeling it before you're even doing it. So great use of time and a great use of budgeting to do something like that. And then you want to, ideally, if we're still in the accumulation phase, if we're still saving our money, still earning money, earning income, say from employment, or even if we're in retirement, you can sort of globally earmark a percentage of your annual income. So let's say household income is $100,000 and you and your spouse agree that, okay, 10% of our household spendable income, now this is spendable, not gross, this is after tax, the amount that hits your bank account, 10% goes towards these events and experiences that help add quality to the fabric of our life. And so there you go. There you $100,000 annual household income. $10,000 is the amount that you're going to put aside to ensure that you take the trips, or you have the experience, or you do the skydiving, or whatever the thing is. You earmark it specifically for that, because much like saving, which I believe needs to be intentional, you need to save first before you spend if you want to be successful at building a financial foundation. Once you have done that, then it's the converse is sort of true. You need to be intentional about your spending. If you don't really earmark a certain portion of it and declare that will go to that purpose, well, then life can kind of get in the way. And then, you know what, the HVAC needs to be repaired, and I probably got to get a new radiator in the car, and there's a hole in the roof that needs to be fixed. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, I'll just put that vacation, the family trip on hold. And 1 year turns into 2, turns into 5, turns into 10, and then you've lost a lot of opportunity there. So being intentional about your spending can help encourage you to do that as well. So once we prioritize what matters, how do we fund these experiences without compromising our financial security? And we're going to talk about that when we come back from our last break. 627-7979. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, the president at Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. For more information about us, you can look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. All right, tonight, talking about how to strategically use your money to spend guilt-free once you have reached the stage of financial security. And it's one of the greatest joys of my occupation is to encourage our clients to start spending more freely of the money that they have spent a lifetime building and saving, and letting them know that now is the time, that they've made it, they've done it, they've arrived. Now you can start spending more money guilt-free than you have at any point in your life before. Go forth and enjoy. And so this is a big part of what we're talking about in the show tonight. So how about a little bit of the technical aspects of funding travel and hobbies strategically? So I mentioned before the break that a good starting point is to just take a percentage of your annual household income, and I mean the spendable income, the after tax. So whatever your direct deposit is into your bank account twice a month or every 2 weeks, multiply that out for the end of the year, come up with a number, 5%, 10%, 15% of that amount. That's the amount that you're going to dedicate yourself to try to spend on life experiences or items that give you deep, impactful enjoyment. And that start with that large budgetary overview, and then you can drill down from there. What do I do with this money that I have coming in that I want to set aside for this purpose? I don't think you should leave it in your regular old transactional checking account. Number one, you will make next to no money on it in our current interest rate environment. And while making money on these funds is not the primary purpose, if it's going to sit there for 6 to 12 months as it builds up, as you accumulate it for the trip of a lifetime, then you should at least try to eke out a little bit more interest on it. So you want to probably keep those short-term funds in high-yield savings accounts or specific travel travel designated accounts. Most banks have a money market account or a super savers account. They call them different things. You have to sort of meet a little bit higher thresholds. Usually it means you have to have about $10,000 of a minimum balance. You can only make like 6 withdrawals per month, but those numbers should be readily achievable if you're saving up for a big expenditure. So you get more market-like interest. Instead of 0.1% on your checking account, you might get 3.5% or close to 4% in this interest rate environment. And then you want, for more medium-term goals, those that are say 1 to 3 years into the future, taxable brokerage accounts are good for those. So that instead of an IRA or your company retirement plan, we'd open up a regular brokerage account at Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard or some of the big players in the marketplace. And you just invest in those accounts in, we would say, mutual funds or exchange traded funds. Individual stocks have a higher risk level that most people, individual investors, don't appreciate until things go really south. So mutual funds and ETFs for their diversification properties are great for intermediate term goals. And then don't forget about taking advantage of loyalty programs, travel points, hotel points. Those types of things do add up and do matter over time. If you can discipline yourself to get a good points credit card and pay it off in full monthly so that you never pay any interest on the balance, yet you can use that card to accumulate points that you can use to trade off for discounts on hotels or dining or experiences. That definitely is a viable strategy to use those types of instruments to help enhance your travel experience and accelerate the amount of time it takes to get to your goal for whatever the indulgence or the travel trip may be. And then as you start planning your trips or your experience or your purchase of special hobby equipment or something like that, did you know that, like, if you making blankets, crochet, yeah, but it's even more than that. It's like, we have a client who told me that she makes these really intricate blankets, and it might be knitting or crochet, and I have no clue what I'm talking about here. But I do know she told me that you could easily spend 10,000 or more on like their version of a sewing machine to create these elaborate quilts. I mean, that's a lot of money. So it's okay if that's your thing, if that's your passion, if that's your hobby, but keep that on your radar and look for it to go on sale. Don't just get it because it's a shiny new thing that when you went to the trade show and you said, wow, this is the greatest quilting machine ever. I've got to have that. Sit on it, cool off, keep it on your radar, see if you can't buy it for sale. So sorry for that aside there, but just popped in my head. So cost versus experience trade-offs. Maximize enjoyment per dollar spent. What does that mean? Well, international travel trip to Italy, probably $25,000 if you want to do it right for 2 or 3 weeks, all in airfare, hotel accommodations, experiences, right? $25,000. Well, could you have just as much fun if you went to the Rockies in the United States and probably spend $5,000? Maybe. Probably get some elements of that. So just be careful about, it doesn't have to be the most expensive, lavish trip in the world to still be extremely enjoyable. I have a saying, it's not really where you go, it's who you go with that makes the experience. So choose your travel partners wisely. And if you have friends and relatives who you get along with well and are good travel mates, then those are the people that enhance that experience. And no matter what the cost and no matter where you go, it almost always lends itself to be a great life experience. And then you can consider some alternatives, right? So rent some of your hobby equipment instead of buying. You can do your travel maybe off season. So I guess that would mean what? Going to Cancun in the summertime here instead of in December, January, or February. That would be peak travel for them. Opposite might be true if you're going skiing in Colorado, something like that. So consider to do the experience, but just do it off schedule. All right, I'm running out of time here. I just want to wrap it up by saying, remember that money is a tool. When you plan wisely, it can fund experiences that enrich your life and deepen relationships and then give you the freedom to enjoy every stage of your life without regret. So spend intentionally, save strategically, and let your passions thrive along with your financial security. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna. I'll be back in 2 weeks on Tuesday, November 11th.